But no, and then what was crazy was Holloway. So then Holloway comes up next, and I was watching that. So I was torn because I've always loved Aldo, I've always really liked Holloway, and like Aldo, we've sponsored him for a long time for Dethrone, and I always hate when the guys from one stage of MMA get to the end of their career, and it's like it bugs me that like there's a lot of people that don't know how great they really were, right? So with Aldo, it's kind of like you feel like, man, it's just, and it always happens. There's some evolution but it's just not fair in a way that it's like he doesn't get the respect that he deserves. I don't think. But then, and you're thinking, oh, he's in great shape, and oh, he's going for it, and then Holloway just seems like so mellow and relaxed, and I was sitting there thinking, well, you forget like, oh, well, how's Holloway gonna? I could see how. I mean, Aldo maybe will connect with one of these punches. It was disappointing because it always sucks when you're. I wasn't rooting for either one, but when you're watching a guy and he's getting tired, and like, you know what, this fight's gonna change. This fight's gonna change because he's getting so tired. Like I'm gonna get robbed of what I should get because he's just getting tired. But then Holloway was just weird how he just chilled out for a round. Let him tire
He
himself
doesn't
out.
stop, bro. He
Then I'll
just
turn it
keeps
up.
going. He's in great shape.
And he's got more
He's
pop in his punches than it seems like, because I always thought, well, he doesn't have that much pop in his punches. He's gonna have to, but they just accumulate them. But he just
It's
so
the
confident.
accumulation of punches, and also like he's hitting you hard, right? But he's not. He doesn't. It doesn't come with a lot of effort, and I think that's why people don't think that he's throwing it hard because he does it so effortless.
Yeah,
he's throwing hard. He's knocking mugs out. Like he's hurt Jose Aldo bad on a couple of occasions, but
even those jabs were hurting him. I mean, you start at a point where you thought, Holloway hasn't done anything, and all of a sudden Aldo's got like a little mouse under his eye, and you're like, dude. And then and then you think like, oh, that must have been some weird thing, but then it just starts growing and growing, and it's just. But he was just so. It's that weird. It's like almost like becoming champion just gave some guys. It seems like they feel a little bit of pressure or expectation, whereas with him, it felt like. Now he's 100% comfortable in his own skin. He's like, I always knew I was a champion, and now I am the champion, and now I'm just gonna relax and do my thing. It was crazy. Like,
he did a couple things that was awesome. Was because he drew Jose into a firefight, knowing that Jose would get tired, right? So he caused him to start fighting in just exchanging, knowing that at the end of the day, Jose would tire before he would. And I just believe that ultimately that was probably the one of the deciding factors, was just that Aldo started to gas, and he only started to gas because Holloway made him fight away, in a way that he's not used to fighting.
Yeah. One thing that disappoints me about Aldo is when he was young, you always heard how his jiu-jitsu was like really, really good. Not just like a striker that has pretty good jiu-jitsu. Like arguably his jiu-jitsu is better than his striking, but we never got to see that. Like it's been a long time since he's gone to the ground or done any of that stuff. And maybe
he's always kind of used his wrestling in reverse, right? So when guys are trying to take him down, they never could take him down. Yeah. And he was just so good on the feet that nobody could really go with him. But now, Max Holloway is like a nightmare matchup for him. He's real big, real long, and in great shape.
Yeah. It seems like the older guys, it always happens, and it doesn't seem to, but they're not all the same. But it feels like whenever there's like that passing of the guard from one generation to the next, it always feels like the new guy is just smoother in how he like flows everything together. But then
that's
it's
true
weird
because the game just continues to evolve.
Yeah, but
right?
It's weird how Aldo at one point was the smooth guy who connected all these things and put it all together, and then he gets to a certain point, and then Holloway comes along and he's even smoother. It's weird. It's weird how like you can be the guy that flowed better than the last generation, and all of a sudden some guy comes along and he can put it all together better than you. What a weird sport.
It's a weird, great sport.
Yeah. No, it is a great sport. Great sport to watch.
So what did you think of Conor McGregor putting that picture up and said, it was a picture of Max in the wheelchair after he lost to Conor.
I think
Conor wrote, dang, I miss those glasses. That's what he said, dang, I miss those glasses. So I was thinking he was talking about like the mouses over Max's eyes, but when you look closely, Connor's in the background wearing black shades. You just gotta really look closely though. So
Huh.
he's really like McGregor like approaches you tactically in mental warfare on a completely different level than most fighters, right?
Yeah, I think that Max has actually done it perfectly, and I could see that it could get under Conor's skin because for one, well they fought before, but Max was like 12 years old, and right, and neither of them was at 100%, and it was a tough fight. I mean, Conor obviously had the knee injury, but it was a good fight, but Max was on his way up, and since then he's done everything right, and then even better when he got the belt. And they'd ask him about Conor. He wasn't like everyone else that said, Conor, I want to fight Conor, I want to fight Conor. Max was like, I don't give a shit about Conor. He was the champion, 2 years ago? Like, this is 20, I don't even know what the years were, right? He's like, this is 2016 or 2015. That guy hasn't fought in my division since 2014. But in the beginning, it was kind of like, whatever, right? Because Conor was fresh off it, and everyone kind of saw him as the featherweight champ. But because of what Holloway's done since then and how he fights, I think there's a part of Conor probably watching that last night going, you know what? There's a lot of people that don't give a shit that I was that champion. They see Max. They see Max now as the legitimate featherweight champion, and then it's also MMA. Time just goes by, and so I would bet you a lot of people watching that fight last night no longer even know that Conor vacated that title or care. They're just like, oh, Max is a beast. He's the 145 champ. Conor, what? He's the 55 champ, right? He beat Eddie Alvarez, or he boxes. A lot of people probably think Conor's a boxer. So I would think that on some level his competitive fire would think like maybe that's a worthy opponent. But I also think that Conor probably, I think he's even said it publicly, like respects Max, respects the way he fights, kind of like admires that, how he fights on some level. So I could either picture him wanting to fight him or just being like, no, that guy's, he would never say it with a camera on, but I could picture him without a camera on being like, oh, I like that guy. He's good. He does everything the right way, blah, blah, blah.
I think it just shows you like some of the big wins that Conor has. I mean, back then people just kind of shit on Conor, but saying he was getting favorable matchups. But I mean,
yeah, the
do we
Alvarez
ever
one.
think that Max Holloway would be considered a favorable matchup? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Alvarez even, that was like kind of, I was kind of fell victim a little bit to thinking like, well, Conor got to fight for the lightweight title against a guy who was probably the least likely lightweight champion there's been in the last 10 years. But, then you look and it's like putting Eddie Alvarez away is not easy. So obviously Conor hitting you is just different than other people hitting you. But Max, I think, would be interesting because he, I don't think he would give a shit about anything Conor said, so I don't think he'd get under his skin. He seems pretty elusive, and he's
tough enough to he's tough enough to take the beating and stay in there.
Yeah, and he's pretty long. And Max, I think, in the beginning of his career, you just underestimated him because he was so wiry. He kind of had that like skinny badass look, but
he's filled up now.
But you don't think of him as like just that tough because it just is. I don't know. I guess because his facial features are like narrower. It just doesn't seem like you would picture like this super tough guy, but he's just like
just badass Hawaiian.
Yeah, and he's been fighting in the UFC since he was like
20.
Was he 20 or was he younger?
He was 20. This dude's about to be 25. He's gonna be 26 on Monday, tomorrow.
Jeez. Yeah.
World champ, 25 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah, I thought he was even a teenager. No, he yeah, I mean he like basically grew up in the was basically grown up in the octagon.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, man.
But I think even beyond that, I mean, I think half people were just talking about his entourage in the ring afterwards. I know that's all Millar was talking about.
Why?
Millar's like, who the hell are these girls in the ring? Why doesn't everyone bring these kind of girls in the ring? I'm like, I don't know.
Max Holloway.
Yeah.
He's a champ, man.
Yeah, it's champ life.
Champ life.
His kid was funny too when he did the little dab. That was cool.